All right, thank you for joining me on the Thursday edition. It is now 5:35. Beautiful day today, I might say, huh? Blue skies. Wonder if it'll last until tomorrow. Now, since when did the Constitution provide for a health care guarantee? And since when did the Constitution guarantee the Congress the power to force Americans into health care? Now, what good is a Constitution if we choose to ignore it? And what good is a Constitution if the Congress simply chooses to create a new one in their own graven socialist image? Truly, these questions are meaningless now. The Constitution is hanging by the tiniest of threads. Who will save it? Who will come to its rescue? Those words were written by our next guest, Adam Murdock, MD. Dr. Murdock is the founder of the Freemen Institute, which is an educational and policy center concerned with preserving the foundations of liberty and the continuation of a free republic. Dr. Murdock joins us now. Thank you for making the time available.
Thanks for having me.
So you asked about the Constitution, and I am amazed at how these people, 535 of them in the Congress, can take an oath to uphold the Constitution, yet after they give that solemn oath, they just simply ignore it altogether, except for maybe a handful led by Ron Paul.
Exactly, and that's been one of the focuses of what I've been writing about and talking about, is that we seem to have an idea that we can have one set of rules for one population and another set for another population. In other words, we can give one group of people health care and then remove health care from others, and somehow that's compatible with the Constitution. And what that really entails is that the elderly will be the ones that really suffer from the Obamacare plan. Inevitably, they will be the ones that will have their choices limited, their options taken away, and be forced on plans or hospice programs or other things where they will be limited in types of surgeries, procedures, medicines, etc., at the expense of other people.
Is it in the piece that you wrote titled "The End of America Happens in the Middle of the Night"? Are you the one that outlined that in some of these European centralized one-payer systems, government systems, that they have a scale there in terms of age that says, oh, well, if you're this old, you can't have a kidney replaced, or if you're this old, you can't have this done. Was that in your piece, or did I read that somewhere else?
That wasn't in this specific piece, but I've written several others that talk about exactly that. Myself, I'm actually originally born and raised in Canada, and certainly those kind of things are commonplace in Canada, the UK, and elsewhere. Certainly, I wrote about recently in the UK an example of an elderly woman who was determined that she was too old for appropriate care, so they decided to remove food and water from this woman, and it was only on prodding from her daughter that they finally fed her and gave her water and sustenance, and subsequently she's been alive for the next 8 months, but she was placed on this hospice program I call death care program because she was no longer seen as fit, and there was no further supposed justification for keeping her on the high-intensity medical care she was receiving.
Well, you know, people don't understand how corrupt those systems are. I'm an expatriate Canadian, by the way. I'm a naturalized American now. And so I lived under that system for quite some time. But once I entered the media, I never had to wait for a thing again, because the last thing that system wants is to have public criticism of long wait lines. They kind of pretend they don't exist. And so you have this kind of perverse system of favoritism depending on your position in society. As a matter of fact, a few years back, the cabinet ministers of the provincial government of British Columbia were found to have been able to jump the queue because of their exalted positions as cabinet members. It's just bizarre that somehow that people in this country, that there's anybody in this country that would think that those types of systems are superior to what we have here.
It indeed is mind-boggling to me, and I think these countries like to put on a facade that they're somehow great and that they have no problems and that their system is perfect, yet from somebody such as yourself and my experience having lived there and lived in other countries that uphold the same socialist values, the truth is much farther from that. In reality, one has to ask what kind of country that would allow such disparity, allow one group, a certain segment of politicians, to gain favorable treatment while letting their elderly not have any treatment at all.
I want to play a soundbite. Senator Roland Burris from Illinois, the appointed senator who tried to buy his seat. Anyway, CNS.com asked the question, which I've not heard any other news organization ask directly of one of these characters, and that is, what about the constitutionality? And I'd like you to listen to Senator Burris's response. I mean, first of all, his eyes kind of glazed over, and it took him a beat to figure out what we were talking about when he was asked about the Constitution.
From a federal standpoint, what area specifically of the Constitution would give Congress the power to mandate an individual to have health insurance?
Well, that's under certainly the laws to protect the health welfare of the country, and that's under the Constitution. I mean, we're not even dealing with any constitutionality here. Should we move in that direction? What does the Constitution say? To provide for the health welfare and the defense of the country.
Do you think there's any limit to that? Congressionally, is there any limit to what Congress can require someone, an individual, to do?
Before we get into all of that, just rest assured we need health insurance where everyone is insured. We need health insurance where it's affordable. We need health insurance that can be can cost affordable.
I was just blown away by that answer.
Yeah, and that seems pretty typical of the kind of thing you hear from these politicians.
Ignoramus. The General Welfare Clause somehow grants them the right to force people into health care. And, of course, another analogy they use is they talk about auto insurance. All right, so you were quite despondent when you said that when the House passed it, it was like they did it in the middle of the night. So where are we going? I mean, if people who we elect and put into power disregard the rules of that power, where are we?
Well, my opinion is we're descending rapidly into the same sort of dictatorial states that we've long, regarded as something that we could never see in this country of ours. These kind of things are so reminiscent of the Soviet Union and other communist or otherwise dictatorial states, and that is my fear, is that we're using the power and persuasive powers of the government to align one set of group of people, those that as yet don't have medical care or supposedly don't have medical care, and using them, bribing them against another group of people, and at the same time removing the constitutional rights we have to determine what we do with our own bodies, what kind of medical care we obtain, what kind of medical care we don't obtain, refuse to obtain. And when we go down that road, that decision will be removed from us, and will also be removed from the doctor, who will be forced to follow whatever treatment protocols, whatever government dictates that the Obama administration or any future administration or healthcare administrator determines are the right set of treatments that people deserve out of the kindness and benevolence of their hearts.
So, Dr. Murdock, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Do you see a silver lining in the cloud? I mean, do you see any hope? I mean, or is it hopeless?
Well, I don't see any hope with this plan. Over the last few months, the run up to this vote, we were told, this plan is dead, it'll never pass, and yet it passed. And so we've been told also this time by Senator Graham and other Republicans that this bill is dead on arrival, and yet I'm not too optimistic that it really is. I think they'll find it any way they can, whether it's to buy off senators, give them perks or whatever they need to try to get this plan passed. And it's really up to us.
To be fair, two Democrats, Ben Nelson of Nebraska, and the independent Lieberman, are both against it and say they will not vote for something and are prepared to filibuster if there's a public option.
Yes, and I've read about that as well, but it seems like we've heard this story before, and somehow it ends up getting done some way or another.
All right, Dr. Murdock, I appreciate your time. People can check out not only what you write, but other people write at freemeninstitute.com. Now, it's Freemen, not man. Freemen, M-E-N, institute.com. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye-bye.